and welcome back to the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, where we unravel the complexities of ERP systems and help you harness their potential for your business success. And today we are tackling a particularly challenging aspect of ERP implementation, what we like to call organ rejection. So just as the human body might reject a transplanted organ, sometimes organizations can similarly resist a newly implemented ERP system. This metaphorical rejection can manifest post-implementation through signs like user resistance, increased complaints, high costs, increased stress levels for all involved, all of which can severely impact the effectiveness of a newly implemented system. So join us as we delve into the causes of this rejection and the telltale signs to look out for. But in order to do this, I am joined, as ever, with my co-host, Nirav. Welcome back.
Hey Peter, happy to be here and talk about organ rejection. And obviously, we are not medical experts or doctors with a medical degree here, but this is an important concept, right? Is the rejection that's happening slowly or fast post implementation of your ERP system. And we've always said it. We said it from day one of our podcast. We probably mentioned it many times. Is ERP implementations themselves are heart transplants of the organization, right? You're ripping out such a core, central part of the livelihood of an organization. In this case, the heart, right, and replacing it. Right, so you already probably had a bad heart. The heart was bad, the organ was bad, or was slowly not doing what you needed to do in order to have a strong company. So you decided to go out and find a new ERP system. So you went out and found a partner and found an ERP system. You went through the sales cycle, and you bought it, right? And then you implemented it. And what you're realizing slowly, right, or maybe right away, is that you're starting to get rejection, organ rejection, that this newly purchased ERP system is not doing what you need it to do. And you're having a hard time with your data. You're having a hard time keeping users involved and motivated. You have a hard time working with your partner. You're having a hard time wringing your hands around how to get this ERP system to work for your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to dive into a lot of these things, but this happens every day, Peter. Like, I can't tell you countless like examples of customers that we talk to where they say, yeah, we got into this ERP system just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and we realized it's not going to work for us 3 years after implementation, right? And now they're back at the drawing board and they're looking for another organ, putting yourself back on that transplant list, right? And finding, who's going to be a good publisher for me, who's going to be a good partner for me, how are we going to know that this next system is going to work, right? And this cycle goes on and on and on for a lot of companies where they're not able to settle into an ERP system that's going to work for their business properly. So I think this is an important subject, a subject that needs to be, shouldn't be taken lightly. Although we use it metaphorically, as organ, failure, it's essentially the failure of the ERP system to work for your business. So we have a couple different, talking points that we're gonna discuss here, but all these, and there's probably more that maybe we don't discuss, and you'd be interested to hear from other users and companies and what their experiences have been when they come across this and realize that we're actually going through an organ rejection. I think that's step one, is realizing that you're going through it, right? There could be false hope saying, oh, you know what? If I just fix these 5 issues, that's going to take us, that's going to take us over the hump, right? But then there's going to be another 5 issues, right? It's like kind of like repairing a car. It's been over 100,000 kilometers, 100,000 miles, and you get the first problem that comes up. Oh, you got to replace the timing belt, and then The next problem that comes up is, oh, you got to replace the compressor because the AC went out. Then the next problem comes up. You got to go ahead and try to replace the transmission. And then you got to replace, all you just have this false hope. Oh, I'm going to do this, the car's going to work fine. I'm going to do this, the car's going to work fine. But at some point, you got to say this. We got to stop here, right? Whatever we're doing is not working correctly and is not going to properly help. And we need to understand that we're going through an organ rejection, a system
Hmm.
rejection here, and now we need to find the right response to
Hmm.
this rejection.
Yeah, and some of these aren't just a case of, well, it's just a new system. So some of these telltale signs, shall we call them, it's not just a case of going, oh, well, it's just because it's new. People have just got to get used to it. Like that's not always that's going to
Yeah.
happen, and there's going to be a certain level of that in the mix as well with user training. But they're not necessarily signs of um, organ rejection in this case. It's not always just going to be, well, it's just because it's new. It's just because we're learning the ropes of the new system. There's going to be other
Mhm.
things involved with some of these telltale signs. So, should we get straight into it? And I guess
Let's do it.
let's kick off with this one. I think we're going to do them out of order, but
Mhm.
let's just start with user resistance in general. So,
Yeah.
the telltale signs of rejection with user resistance or user complaints.
Yeah, you're looking for users, providing negative feedback constantly on the system, right? Where users aren't able to do their job because of system. Um, they stop entering transactions in the system,
Hmm.
right? The system's continuously behind of what's happening in real time. Um, could be that users are finding shortcuts around the system,
Yeah.
right?
Or go into their old system because remember, you might have your old ERP system if you're coming off one already
Yeah,
as a read-only database. People are like,
right.
I'll just quickly nip into the old system to find this or to do this, or
Yeah,
I'll just do this shipping label in the old system.
yeah, exactly, exactly, right. There's so many ways around it, or users are starting to, not just one user, but departments are stopping to rely on the system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are sure signs that, hey, you're having some serious user resistance going on here with the new ERP system. We need to somehow bring it back on track, understand why there's user resistance going on, so you could find the proper remedy potentially, right? Or decide that, okay, the system is not what the users expect it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through some serious adoption issues internally with the new ERP system. Because look, at the end of the day, people, right, are not gonna most people are not gonna have a personal vendetta to to go against a business system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people are generally, open to that idea. Okay, this is a new system. It's gonna make my job easier. It's gonna help the company. We're all for it. We're gonna go ahead and implement this successfully and perform the transactions as they're designed, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
for that person. Um, but when you get user resistance to a level that they just don't like to use a system because it is impairing their job, right? It's preventing them from doing their job successfully. There's a lot of name calling or blaming back and forth. System is constantly behind in transaction. You can't get real data out, right? It's not accessible at the right times for users, right? When you start getting into that type of stuff, that's when you know, hey, let's kind of look out for this. We're kind of getting some sort of organ rejection here, that what
Mm-hmm.
we've implemented here isn't being well received by the
Mm-hmm.
users.
Now, you know as well as I, data is becoming more and more important.
Yeah,
More and more companies are looking into their data, um, probably getting more out of their data than ever before when we look at AI and Copilot and all of
yeah,
these extra ways of number crunching. So data is as important as it ever has been, and people always want to be data led and make data driven decisions. So this one is a big issue if you have integrity issues with your data here. So let's
Yeah.
break this one down. Some of the things within data integrity. So mistakes, errors, higher error rates. What are the things that we've got within data integrity?
Well, it could be also that the processes that were thought out during the implementation and the transactions being entered wasn't fully thought out, of maybe missing a lot of key elements to that data. Right now, once you start having to put data in a separate Excel file manually because that was not discussed or not thought of during the implementation,
Mm-hmm.
that's slowly going to lead to organ rejection, ERP rejection, because now someone's starting to manage their own system
Yeah.
slowly but surely, right? So now when you get users and they start doing something else outside the system, that's going to increase the constant data integrity issues because they're going to start developing more and more of their own system outside of what they should be doing in the ERP
Mm-hmm.
system, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. Um, Taking that data and not being able to help service customers correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're sending a ton of emails back and forth to get updates, to understand what vendors are doing. You don't understand which vendors are meeting your report card rating, right? Vendor supply ratings. You don't know which orders are being late because your data is
Mm-hmm.
just unorganized. You don't have a good back order process. Shipping and the warehousing team is just running around constantly, unable to understand how to properly sequence or time shipments and picking and production in a proper manner, which
Mm-hmm.
leads to inventory controls issues, higher inventory carrying costs, lower gross margins and profits, right? At the end of the day, like it's a cascading effect. The dominoes
Yeah.
could fall pretty fast when you get to this area when you talk about data integrity issues because you an ERP system is not a siloed thing, right? Think of the heart. The heart is the main organ that controls the body, right? Heart stops, you stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Heart starts. The heart starts reducing its capacity in pumping blood, or it starts working less than it needs to. Other organs are going to start feeling affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ERP, it's not like, oh, just because sales is having a problem using the ERP system, that's not going to affect inventory. It's not going to affect the finance department. It does. It affects
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Any one of these situations where you have there's starting to be a breakdown in the integrity of that module, it's going to start becoming apparent through every department. Slowly but surely it will.
Yeah. And all of these are linked to KPIs that every business will have. When you're looking at things like delivery performance and effective use of your cash, are you tying it in up in too much stock because you had data integrity issues that told you to
Right.
order something, you didn't have to order it, but you did anyway, because the warehouse had an issue booking in the last lot that was received.
Right.
So because of that, now you're double ordering. Now you've got too much inventory. Now you've got slow moving product. You've not got the right product, which is impacting your sales team. Like you can see how this starts to fester into
Oh yeah.
every part of the business when data
Hmm.
is not up to date or accurate or reliable.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we've all been there. Every company has someone that has to do something outside of the system. They have their own dimensional data, their own lookup table, because the ERP doesn't support it or no one's looked after it. So it's just so far out of date that
Yeah.
no one wants to use it because it doesn't get trusted or whatever.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the data integrity side of things is so key to a lot of this because it's the heart of the business, isn't it? So maybe this is an error within the data migration plan, maybe things were missed that we didn't realize we were reliant on, or maybe there were other things where we thought, that's fine, we can keep it in the old system, we can just look it up. Well, if that's something you have to look up multiple times a day, then maybe you should have brought that over with you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
all of
yeah,
these kind of link into what you need in terms of data to be able to operate just like you did, um, you know, before you had an ERP,
yep.
or when you were on your prior ERP. So
Hmm.
um, data is king again.
Yeah, it really is. And it's important to have the right system, right? If you could pick the right system up front, right? You've got matched, going back to the medical world, right? You get matched for that transplant patient, you get matched with the donor, right? And that donor is like a really good match for you, right? So you're gonna reduce the chances of organ rejection, right? In the ERP space, if you're a distribution company, right, you shouldn't be maybe looking at a piece of software, ERP system, that's not distribution focused, right? You should be looking at only systems that are distribution focused. You should be looking at systems that really are industry specific, are your vertical, that make sense
Mm-hmm.
for your business, right? Because that's going to reduce organ rejection here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of companies sometimes get, a little ahead of themselves where they start thinking about things that maybe they might do 10 years from now, 15 years from now, right? And they start going down the road of saying, oh, we need a system, right? A prime example of, an organ rejection in the ERP space is you're an SMB company and you do about, let's say, 50 million a year in sales revenue. And all of a sudden you think you're bigger than you are, and you go the route of getting F&O, or you go in the route of getting a much bigger system than that's actually required for your business to run,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Now you are immediately right off the bat, right? Sure, can that higher tier system do what you want to do? Sure, it can, but so
Mm-hmm.
could an SMB product, maybe like Business Central, Acumatic, or other SMB publishers in the space,
Mm-hmm.
which could do it probably more effective because it has those type of users in mind, versus looking
Mm-hmm.
at a global enterprise system that
Yep.
has so much functionality to it. You're not going to use it. If you're only using 20% of it, right? Why purchase such a big system? That's going
Mm-hmm.
to increase data integrity issues, resistance to user change, right? All these different things, because you don't have the right donor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the right connection between the ERP and publisher at this point. So it's important, right? It could be, system to vertical. It could be system to tier, right? It all depends in the unusual situation. I don't think there's a one size fits all for any company out there. I think there's always a system that's better than another
Mm-hmm.
for every company out there, and you just got to do your homework essentially. And that's why organ rejection is an important piece of this. Is some of this could be prevented up front,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some of it now, is seeing post implementation. I know we're focusing on post implementation here, but these are the type of things that we have
Yep.
to keep in mind.
Okay, linked to this, we've touched on it a little while back. We were saying about kind of customizations. So having to customize core modules of ERP. Now, there's always going to be certain business processes. There's always going to be this very particular thing that a company needs, and that's fine. If you need some kind of custom module, or whether you have particular industry requirements or certifications, it could be anything, that's fine. But what are we talking about here when we look at customizations of core modules? Why is this a telltale sign for organ rejection?
Yeah, because every probably 80 to 90% of all ERP implementations have some level of customization to it, right? There's going to be some regulatory customization you have to do. There's some, customer compliance customization you have to do, vendor compliance. There's some intricacies, right? This is something really unique to that company that you need to customize something, whether it's a report or a process, whatever, right? But if you're having to go down the route where you have to like rewire, right, all the main arteries, to connect to all different places in the body or in the system, in the ERP system. Something's going on here, guys, right? You're going
Mm-hmm.
through an organ rejection, essentially, where the way that ERP systems designed to work is now so far different than what it was out of the box that it's not even noticeable anymore, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
have to customize that much to have it to work for your business, you're not in the right system. You don't have a good match here, and you're probably going through organ rejection, which will lead to heart failure in this case, right? So because what's going to happen is partners are going to have a hard time maintaining that heavily customized database.
Yeah.
You can't upgrade and use any of the latest features because now you're so handcuffed to all the customizations that you've done in the system,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can't bring somebody else in. You can't hire new talent that knows that system anymore because you have to find talent that will learn a brand new system essentially because you've customized it so much.
Yeah.
So your hiring costs are going up now, right? So it's important to understand that if you have to customize to that level to have that system work for you, you have to rethink: are you in the right system? Do you have the right match here? Do you have the right organ for your organization?
Mm-hmm. That's very similar to another point we've got just in general here, higher implementation costs. So post implementation, there's obviously still going to be some costs involved. There's going to be user training. You're still going to be leaning on your ERP partner for training support, any development, any kind of extra um, like nice to haves after the post implementation. But in terms of a an organ rejection lens, higher implementation costs. This is one of them, isn't it? This
Yeah.
upkeep of customized core modules. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to become a slippery slope, as you said, with ERP updates,
Mm-hmm.
change at an
Yep.
ERP partner.
Yep.
Um, they might have in-house expertise of this particular custom module. When they say leave and move on to a different company, who's going to be able to know what that module does, why it was
Yeah.
written, how it was written,
Right.
and
Right.
similarly with the customer as well. So you might
Mm-hmm.
have someone that's an expert that uses this module and knows the intricacies and knows how to fix it, maybe in house when things get stuck in the system. What happens when they leave? When you've got
Yep.
all of these customizations, you're just going to incur higher costs, recurring costs as well, if you don't recognize maybe this is a failed
Mm-hmm.
organ transplant here.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that kind of goes to our point earlier, right? Like if you're noticing this early on, have a group meeting. Discuss with your partner, discuss internally, right? I'm a big proponent in my life or anything I do, whether it's my business, whether it's, decisions I make, personally or, for my career or for the family, do a gut check.
Yeah.
Have a gut check, right? Saying, wait, are we going down the right path here? Does this feel normal, right?
Hmm.
Should we be doing all this at the end of the day? And if it doesn't
Hmm.
feel normal, right, have that discussion internally.
Hmm.
We might be going down the route path that is going to hinder our company at the end of the day, and that's something that we don't want.
Hmm. I think companies also need to recognize that you're not going to find a system that is out of the box, vanilla, does everything that you want, all of your intricacies, just doesn't exist.
Right, right,
And at the
doesn't
same
exist.
time, the answer isn't a whole ton of customizations. There needs to be a bit of give. You might need to redesign processes. You're going to have, hopefully, you would have had your ERP vendor selection process where you've now got an ERP vendor that's seen multiple businesses just like you
Hmm.
and have seen how others do certain things. You're no different. You're not special. You're not the only company in the world that does that thing that you think no one else
Exactly.
does. You got to kind of have a bit of an inward look and take some of this advice on because you're going to have someone that's not too close to your business. that will come along with a fresh pair of eyes and the experience of seeing all of this before and seeing other companies that might have also changed their process. So I think this is also on the customer as well to recognize that and be amenable to some of these changes and tweaks that might mean that now they can use a core module rather
Yep.
than something that first of all looked like it needed a customization.
Right. Right. You
And
hit
I
the nail
guess
right on the head.
that just lowers the risk of organ rejection, doesn't it?
It
The
does.
the less you have and the less reliant you are on these customizations, the chances of not having a rejected um, organ is much greater, isn't it? There's less to go
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the all the the nail right on the head. And it's I would probably say organ rejection happens more because of a heavily customized system. I think that's probably one of the main culprits of this.
Hmm.
Why it's why systems ultimately get tossed in the garbage can after spending all the time, money, investments into it is probably because of over customization, or it was just a wrong product fit from the beginning. So
Hmm.
um, yeah,
Yeah, and this goes back to like before the implementation, having the right team, having a team that are all pulling in the same direction, who are all open to change, to tear the rule book of years ago up and kind of almost start again, really. Because you might find that there's a certain part of the process, it might be the sales ordering process, it might be supply chain management, who do this one thing. And if you question it out and say, okay, but does the customer care about that? No. Okay, does anyone ever look at that document again once it's been posted? No. Okay, so do you really need to be doing it? Can we just strip that out and just use the core module that doesn't have
right,
that feature? Like if the
right,
customer doesn't care, you don't care internally, no one ever looks at it, just strip it out.
yeah,
And that's one
yep,
customization off. It's going to lower costs. It's going to potentially shorten the implementation time, and it gets rid of a potential rejection of
yeah,
the organ.
agreed.
Um, Coupled with this, we've got another bullet point here is the partner's slow response time and unable to resolve organization challenges with the ERP. So, is there anything that we also need to add here? I guess this is kind of what we've just been speaking about in terms of customizations. But if you start
Yep.
to notice maybe a slowdown from the partner, maybe
Yeah.
on the other side, your business seems to constantly be like too reliant post
Mm-hmm.
implementation on the partner. What are
Yeah.
some of the telltale signs here, Nirav?
Yeah. So this is interesting because let's say you have a good product, right? It's fit well, but the partner is hard to get a hold of, and they can't help you fix small bug changes or issues, right? They can't help you with report changes, right? Maybe small customizations you have to do. They can't help you with that, and you're always constantly seeing a delay um, with working with the partner. It's like if you talk about like you transplanted a heart, right? But you can't get hold of your doctor to give you medicine, the medication correctly on time, right? There's no appointment available for you to do a follow up, so you could check whether the heart is being properly, working at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, or that um, uh, if there's minor tweaks that they have to do on medication or um, you're looking at your overall health, the doctor isn't able to provide that feedback, right? I think slowly over time, if you don't get that immediate and constant monitoring when you
Mm-hmm.
have this organ transplant, right? That organ is not going to work optimally, right? Because you need to make sure it's working, and you got to make sure it's working the way it's designed for your body. And the same thing on the ERP. If your ERP, you can't get a hold of the partner, and you have constantly different people that don't know about your implementation, or they're not able to complete any small changes or bug fixes. You'll slowly start seeing rejection, but maybe not
Mm-hmm.
complete full rejection. But users are going to start saying, "Well, we've asked for these things for like 3 months and nothing's got done."
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's going on over here? You'll lose users. Um, they'll start getting more resistant to the system because nothing is happening that they need to happen in order to make them successful
Mm-hmm.
in using the ERP system, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't get proper reporting to help service your customers, right? You can't. The C-level management team they really can't understand what their true numbers are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Slowly, everyone's going to start losing trust in what's happening in the ERP system, right? Now there's more work. You're doing more work now than you had to do previously in your previous system, right? Then you're going to start kind of getting into some of that stuff, which is not a healthy environment, right? That's not a good relationship with the partner and yourself that's implemented a good system. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an external factor from the system itself and the functionality and the logic that the system has. But that's important because that could start leading to organ failure if that new ERP system is not managed correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And without going too far into like the resolutions of this, but this could be things like even way back at the start of an implementation project, not having the right people on board, not having the right voices in the room or the right knowledge, subject matter experts representing every department.
Yeah.
Um, this is where you start to see some of those issues if you didn't have the right team in the first place, or even you kind of skipped some of the user acceptance testing phase of an implementation. If you're not rigorously testing every single part and running every business process through the new system before you go live, um, then you're going to see it post implementation, and it's going to be a ton of work, extra work, higher costs, um, more dependency on the vendor post implementation if you didn't have a rigorous UAT phase beforehand, um, and the training, not holding training sessions for an overview of the new system, getting people prepared for that cutover date and that go live date.
Hmm.
You want to deal with that up front, not post implementation when maybe your vendor's now starting to wind down. Maybe they're internally reallocating their own labor and resources to other projects. They're not going to be just having you
Yeah.
as an ERP implementation project. They need to deallocate sources and work on other projects they're doing. So they might not have as much time. They might not have planned the support that you now suddenly need post implementation. So you're
Right.
going to see slower response times because
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe to them it's not really as much of an active project anymore. So it's going to be
Right.
harder to get these resolved post implementation.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. What we try to do internally for our customers is do a quarterly business review with them. And what that
Mm-hmm.
means is that we try to look at the cases that they've logged for that quarter. You know, we rehash some of the conversations of what their goals and objectives are, right? We talk about, any concerns that they have on their side, right? And we specifically tell them you need to bring questions and concerns that you have, because if we don't know that, we can't help resolve those, right? We can't keep that system operating optimally for them at the end of the day. So we
Mm-hmm.
try to have these kind of collaborative meetings every quarter with customers, and a lot of this gets hashed out. A lot of this it comes to light. We have a plan for it, and we're able to keep that system operating in its fully utilized manner, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I start getting scared is when is when where other partners are not being responsive to customers. It's like set it and forget it. They're live, forget about them now. We're gonna go move on to our next customer, right? And you just can't operate optimally, right? That ERP system just cannot operate because it's a living, breathing thing that people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand, that ERP systems are living, breathing entities. There's software in the system that are designed to continuously change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Change in a positive way as their business conditions are changing, as the customer's business conditions are changing, right? And a partner is a big equation to that, part of the equation to ensure that the system is running optimally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And finally, our last point here is just a general one, really, is that just notice in your teams if there's an increase in stress levels day to day in the organization. because that is a telltale sign that you're maybe suffering from organ rejection, where people are stressed out, things aren't working, they're frustrated. And of course, it's easy to see the tangible things like underutilization of system, implementation costs. These are all tangible numbers that you can kind of track in your
Yep.
KPIs. But there's
Yep.
also the people element of it as well. Is that higher stress level through the business is an indication that maybe all's not well with that new heart that you've just put in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this one goes without saying, right? If everyone is stressed, they're coming into meetings with half the information. They are blatantly telling you that the system is hard to use, a barrier to their job day to day. They don't like putting in data into the system. It's causing a mess in other places. If that's just not clear, I don't know what is, to be honest with you. That all that stuff is just basically screaming that the system is not working and people are rejecting it, and we need to find an alternate way out of this thing and find a better system for the organization to run optimally, right? And grow at the end of the day, because the system's not doing it for the users.
Very good. I think that wraps up another informative episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond. So thank you once again, Nirav, sharing your insights on how to prevent and manage the organ rejection issues post implementation of an ERP system. Anyone looking to ensure their ERP migration or integration is as smooth and successful as possible, these are some of the telltale signs that maybe not all is well. So remember, recognizing the signs of ERP challenges early and addressing them proactively, as many as you can pre-go live, will ensure that the investment and transforming the business onto a new ERP goes as smoothly as possible. So
Yeah.
if you have found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button or whatever they say. Leave us a review. Let us know if there's anyone out there listening who has recently gone through an ERP implementation. Like, how's it going now? How did it go for the first few months post go live? Did you feel any organ rejection, or what did you do if, like, you started to spot some of the telltale signs that we spoke about today? Let us know. Comments, email, Nirav, your details. My details will be in the show notes. Until next time,
All right.
stay tuned. Thank you once
Stay
again.
stay healthy, everybody.
Still stay healthy. Hopefully, no one out there needs a heart transplant, because anything that you heard from us for the last 40 minutes will not apply to the medical world. Do we need a disclaimer on that?
Yeah, I know, right?
Maybe, like if ChatGPT crawls our things, I hate to think that we might get referenced in some kind
Yeah,
of
I know,
medical
right?
advice that someone takes on board, because we've
Yeah,
decided to use this similarly.
yeah, I know, right? I need a heart transplant. You need an ERP system. I don't know if that kind of goes together, but
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you once again. Until next time, take it easy, and I will catch you on the next episode.
thank you, Peter.